trust me. I really think it's the least you could do to treat me like you trust me. When I say to you I don't wanna hurt myself, but I do. I don't wanna hurt myself, but I do. I don't wanna hurt myself, but I do. Tell me, is it too late to take back a joke I made about drinking myself to death? I don't wanna hurt myself, but I do. I don't wanna.
What's up, gamers? Welcome to the Twitch stream. Penguin DM, welcome. Poopy Thighs, welcome. Jack, 33,330? I'm gonna say 33330. Meowtropolis, welcome. Hope everyone's having a good time. Welcome, everybody. This is Braving New Worlds. This is a show I started in order to talk to really cool people that I haven't met yet. Some people I have met and I brought on the show. But basically, this is a show where I interview people who I think are making great work that is changing the world. I think this is a really daunting time to be creating things. So, doing it in and of itself is a brave act. Tonight on the show, we have Gianna Renata, someone who I met from another streamer here on Twitch, Meowtropolis, who's here tonight. Thank you so much for being here. Gianna is a choreographer and a dance instructor who is currently offering courses online, both pre-recorded and custom-made. So we're going to be talking about her relationship with movement, sources for her creative inspiration, and the like. So without further ado, help me introducing Gianna. Hey Gianna, how you doing?
Good, how are you doing?
Yeah, I'm doing well. Something that I forgot to mention is that you are also a Twitch streamer.
I am, yeah. I do movement-based classes on Twitch. Mostly just like stretchy mobility classes and like strength and conditioning.
That's fantastic. And it says that the last time you did it was about last month. What gives you the urge to go online on Twitch?
Usually it's if I could be streaming or teaching more, I'd be doing it more. But I work 3 jobs right now. But usually I'm like, well, I want to move, and something that's going to make me do it and stay doing it for the whole time that I plan on doing it is streaming and having that hold me accountable. And it feels good to work out or move with other people, even if I can't see them.
Absolutely. Yeah, and I noticed, I think it was on Twitter that you were asking people whether or not they were interested in doing a stream. Did that actually come through? It was like this weekend recently that you posted.
Oh, yeah. I actually ended up doing one on my Instagram Live, though, instead of my Twitch. A lot of my students that I've taught in the past use Facebook Live or Instagram Live, and I was like, the studios are starting to open up a little bit back home, and so I figured I would throw out something because I was feeling the need to get in my body and get in my bones a little bit and find some movement inspiration. So I did it last night.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
I'd love to explore that feeling that you just mentioned, that urge to make the movement happen. And I guess in a larger sense, what's your relationship with movement? How's that changed throughout your life? And I guess the easiest question to ask is, did you take classes for movement when you were growing up?
I did. I actually grew up in a dance studio as much as you can. My mom was my first dance teacher. Literally, I started taking class at technically before I was 2 years old, but like in the 2-year-old dance class. So it's just kind of always been a part of my day-to-day. So it was always kind of embedded in me and in my body that like I move on some level, whether it's, a dance class or a yoga class or anything like that. I've only had 2 years of my life where I wasn't actively training or moving for myself.
Wow. And was there a particular time or like a sort of revelation where you realized that this wasn't just, an extracurricular and that this was more of a passion for you?
Yeah, and it was during that 2 years that I wasn't dancing. I was 15, and it was when I was in high school. I injured myself really badly. I sprained my ankle. Like, I fell down the stairs at school on the way to class, and actually ended up tearing a ligament in my foot. But I didn't have surgery. It just, because we didn't really know that at the time. And so I was on crutches for 3 months, like couldn't walk for 3 months. So I went from dancing 20 hours a week to not being able to dance or work out at all. And then once I kind of got introduced back into it was actually the end of fall of my senior year of high school. My theater teacher signed me up for an audition for Fresno State's dance program. They had like a scholarship audition for dancers, and I auditioned for it after only training for about a month and a half on my own in a studio, choreographing a piece and trying to get back in shape. And I got the scholarship, and thank you so much. And I was like, oh, this is what I want to be doing. This is what I feel like I'm supposed to be doing. That's actually how I met Meotropolis.
Oh, wonderful. It was during that, so it was a program that you were entered into?
Mm-hmm. The dance program at Fresno State, yeah.
Okay. And what sort of program was that? Was it like a very intensive, like 6-week program, like year-long program? What was that like?
It was a major for college, so it was actually my study, yeah. So I was in the dance that was how I became part of the dance company at Fresno State.
Okay.
Which is different than the dance team. So it's not like the people who dance at the football games. It was like we're on stage doing very Martha Graham kind of like making shapes.
Right, yeah, and nothing bad about any dance teams or dance clubs.
Nothing wrong with dance teams. Yeah, I was on a dance team for a very long time. I still love that. It's two different things, and so I always feel like I have to explain the difference.
Truly. Yeah, I feel like there was a huge age gap that I wasn't cognizant of when we were talking about it. I'd be like, wait, we went from 15 to
Oh yeah, no. I was 12 years old, got accepted to college. No.
Well, that's awesome. And then, so I guess another question would be, is that when did you start viewing like the movement of the body to be medium forward?
I think that it got. I think that happened while I was at Fresno State when I was in college, and I think that's partially because you kind of joked about the age gap difference that you missed when I was telling that story. That's sort of what happened too. Was that I went from being like a studio kid, which is kind of, it's not Dance Moms, but that's kind of the mentality. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's very like, you hit the leg and you do the thing and it's points and scores and all these things. That when I went to dancing in college, it was a very different, it was more internal in terms of what we were trying to do and what we were trying to accomplish. It wasn't what the picture looked like. It was more how it felt to do it, if that makes sense. It's hard to put into words. And so I think that was kind of the transition. Like, after my first year in the company, at Fresno State, I was still sort of in that studio kid mindset that I was like, oh, my leg isn't where it needs to be, or this isn't how, like, I had a very kind of rigid, oh my goodness. Sorry. I had kind of a very rigid view of what I thought dance was. And then after that first year and kind of getting in the groove of feeling like the movement I was doing naturally held value, because all movement holds value, that I kind of started to click and was like, you don't have to dance for entertainment is wonderful and I absolutely adore it. But there's also, I was introduced to dance in a form of like activism, and dance is a form of like trauma healing and that kind of thing. So I would say probably my second year of college is when that really kind of set in for me.
How did learning about these themes, how movement has different types of intrinsic value, changed how you move for fun?
It's changed. It's changed that the way that I view my own movement for fun, in that I am less critical of myself. Now when I do like improv for just me, or just because I feel like I need to get the wiggles out, or I feel like I'm like stuck in how my body's been moving repeatedly. Like if I'm at work for 12 hours doing the same thing over and over again, I've started it's this last year, I've started like improving and like dancing in my kitchen, like in silence while I'm waiting for my dinner to cook. It's changed with those themes. I think it's changed for me that I don't need music to dance. I don't feel like I have to react to something. I can just let my body do what it wants to.
Wow. That's really powerful. And I think that's part of a big like modal shift inside your head. And I always talk about mental health and whatever sort of practice you can that gives you a little bit more mindfulness and a little bit more of consciousness of how your body is like moving itself, is always a revelation in and of itself. And since I bring up mental health, I'm wondering, how has is it a resource? And from what you've learned, how do you use movement as a resource for bettering oneself inside your own mind?
For me, I'm a very anxious person. And so for me, it kind of quiets the static a little bit if I can just go like move for 5 minutes. Like sometimes I'll either set a timer or I'll put on music I don't know that's an instrumental or something. And if I can move and like close my eyes and just not be where I am, but still be very, like, it grounds me to feel like I'm in my body, if that makes sense. And it's something I talk about in my guided improv classes that I do with my students, is thinking about initiating from as far internally as possible. So I'm not moving my hand, I'm moving from the tendon right in the middle of my hand and pulling that, if that makes sense. It's not moving my chest, it's moving directly from my heart, that kind of thought. And that usually helps me too, because I usually end up either finish or start on the floor completely, like laying down, and just kind of think about the weight of each of my body parts, like from, my organs to my bones to my muscle to my skin, all the way out. And that usually, for me, for my anxiety, that works. Whenever I'm depressed or I'm in a really bad downswing, it gets really hard to move. And that's actually usually when I turn to ballet, strangely enough. Like I'll do a bar for myself, because for me, once I got away from my own self-critical judgment of like what my body looks like while I dance, and I still have those days because sometimes you have to have them for a job or whatever, I love ballet bar. It's so meditative for me because it's always the same order. You always do pliés, then tendus, then dégagés, and like you always do the same exact order. The combinations will change, but the order is always the same, and that's very comforting. So sometimes that centers me a little bit before I feel like I can get into what my body just wants to flow through.
That's fascinating. And Kat says ballet is so codified. I could see how that's grounding.
Yeah, and I didn't like ballet as a teenager. I don't think a lot of teenagers do. And then, yeah, it was once I started dancing again after my injury that it was kind of the stable, like, okay, like this is the foot warm up we do. Okay, here's our plie combination. And it was just like, your brain doesn't turn off. But because you know what's coming next, you can kind of settle into what your body feels like while you do the exercise. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. And I hope this is isn't hard for you to go back to, but I'm kind of centering around the idea of the injury itself and how that sort of was like a perspective shift. Would you feel that movement was not the entirety of your life, but a big part of it, that once that injury happened, there was maybe a little bit of a defeat or something that you needed to overcome in that?
Yeah, I struggled really, really badly, especially the first year, because I think it was in the fall. It was in the fall, it was starting to get cold when I injured myself. And I remember being in the car with my dad to go get crutches. We had to go buy crutches. And I was so angry at myself for tripping. It wasn't there was anything I could have done about it. I tripped and I sprained my ankle. In hindsight, my mom and I joked that it was the universe telling me I needed to slow down, that I was doing too much. I just needed to sit quietly. But it was very hard to feel like something that was so much of my life was just taken away from me. And it was something that at that point, at 15, I was paying for all my own dance classes.
Okay.
I was partially scholarshiped, but my dad worked in real estate. And so after the recession, my parents were like, if you want to dance, we got to figure something out. And so I was partially scholarshiped by my teacher. And then the rest of it, I was cleaning both of my grandparents' houses and my cousin's house. I was cleaning a different house every week to make money to pay for, on the weekends, to pay for my dance classes. And so it was it felt like something that I had felt was in my control had just been totally taken away from me. It wasn't that I wasn't working for it. It was just that I couldn't do it anymore. And the first year was the hardest because I still had to go to class. I was still going to class. I just wasn't able to take class. So I was sitting there in class watching all of my peers do what I wanted to be doing and practice for the recital and all of that. And I had to go to recital and watch them perform. And it was really hard to just be so excited for them, because I was excited for them to perform and I wanted them to do well. But I also was so sad that I wasn't on stage.
Right.
And so that was really hard, but it did kind of open me up to really exploring other things that I was interested in. I had just joined theater that year, and it kind of let me really explore acting at that point, which was something I hadn't really considered. And it actually also let me explore singing. I was never really a trained singer, but because I was in theater, I was we were right by the choir room, so it was kind of a back and forth. And I actually started hosting open mic nights at my high school. Yeah, I started emceeing once a month, I think. It was once a month. I was emceeing open mics and doing bad acoustic covers with my friends. And like, I think we did an acoustic cover of Thrift Shop, which was super fun, but ridiculous to watch.
What a time to be alive.
Right. So it opened up my urge to perform and my urge to connect with people on a large scale like that to different avenues. So I was in shows, I costumed a show, I started hosting MCs, I was singing in front of people, which I literally hadn't done since I was probably 4 years old. I think up until that point, I had felt like singing in front of other people, because I was a mover, singing in front of other people felt like I had been stripped naked and just like left in the quad. Like, it was just so nerve-wracking. And now it's not something I'm super comfortable with, but like I can do karaoke now. So
Yeah, getting
you know,
out of your comfort zone, the performative part of it, you know, being the performer, being in the role as a performer, I think is probably you in your element. You felt really comfortable with that, but it was also the intention of connecting with a large amount of people.
Yeah.
And since I bring up the idea of performance, obviously you performed a lot when you were in school. Did you perform in any capacity once you graduated?
I did, yeah. I haven't done a ton, just for opportunity's sake. I have been teaching since before I graduated. So I was always performing annually with the studios. Like, my studio directors usually asked me to do a solo as one of the teachers. And so I was usually doing that, or I had jumped in the advanced classes to perform with them. Not last year, I think it was 2019. 2019, there is a group in Fresno called Women to Women, where they focus on female artists and female vendors and creators, and they put together like a monthly kind of pop-up.
Okay.
And I was asked to perform at one of those, so I got to actually perform at a small, super duper small venue, performance like that was super fun. If like the only thing was I didn't get to see the stage until I got there, and like the front row was like right here. Yeah. I was like, I'm so sorry, I'm gonna try really hard not to kick you. But yeah, so I got to do that. That was honestly one of the cooler performances and events that I've gotten to be a part of. It was like female DJs and like all these female vendors out front, like selling really cool stuff. And there was a fashion show. It was a really fun, kind of quirky event to be a part of that was just like happy.
That's amazing. Yeah, I wish I could have been something like it's both there or something akin to that. I think like the thing that's like popping to my mind is like Theater Fest. Did you ever?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was kind of the vibe. That was kind of what it felt like, and it was just like everybody was just stoked to see everybody, and everyone was like, I was one of those things that was really cool for me as a performer too, is because people would kind of flit in and out, like while people were singing or reading poetry or whatever, and like they were like, okay, we're gonna have a dance performance, so like you guys need to like stay seated while she's dancing, and everyone was like, all right. So they're kind of everyone's sitting in all these seats. Like my boyfriend and my family is like standing in the back corner because they couldn't get a seat. And then on the street, there's like these big windows behind me where I'm performing. They're just standing in the windows. So they're watching me from behind too. It was so cool, and it was so strange, but like it was kind of the coolest, like unintentionally site-specific work that I hadn't considered there was a window, but then after that, I was watching a video of the piece and being like, oh, wow, like that part that I faced the back was really the front for those people. So they got to see a whole different part of the piece that the people behind me didn't get to see. And it was a really cool, it just felt very, very surreal looking back on it, especially pre-COVID.
Talking about surreal, I just got a notification. Someone subscribed to me for 2 months. Thank you so much, Matt, for that 2-month streak. Thank you so much for the subscription. Really appreciate supporting the stream. And now that we're talking about dance performances, you have a performance planned for tonight, don't you?
I do, yes.
Do you need to preface it in any way about what inspired you about it, or do you think we should just get into it?
I'll preface it with this is the first piece that I've choreographed on myself since just before COVID. So I'm a little rusty in terms of like me processing my own movement. That's all that is. Yeah.
I'll take it as a Courtney Love exclusive.
There we go. Exactly. Yeah. So that's the only thing I want to preface it with. And I will share. I downloaded the song this week. It's a royalty-free song that I found. So I'll share that if you guys like it on my stuff later.
Sweet. All right, let me throw you up on the big screen.
All right, sounds good. I'm gonna go grab my DJ real quick.
Sounds good. Everybody, thank you so much for being here. You're watching Braving New Worlds with Gianna Renata. Feel free to throw !_ Gianna into the chat for all of the links from her.
All right, just a second.
Yeah, of course. We're just hanging out.
No, I had to wake up my DJ. Sorry.
Ready? You let me know.
Doing fine, so happy without you on my mind. Now I'm doing fine, so happy without you. I just heard the other day that you've been worried about my stay. Then maybe I'm in tears alone. And if our last goodbye left me wondering why, now let me put your mind at ease. Oh, my mind. I'm gonna tell you how I feel. Oh, my mind. And you can rest assured I'm fine, alright. So let me shed some light. I'm free. I'm so proud of who I am. Now I finally found myself. I'm me. Done being someone else. Got my story left to tell. Happy without you. I know that it won't be long. You'll try to play that same old song on my mind. But I won't be around. I won't listen, my dear. 'Cause I moved along. On my mind, now I'm doing fine. I'm free. I'm so proud of who I am. Now I finally found myself. I'm me. Done being someone else. Got my story left to tell. Happy without you on my mind. Now I'm doing fine. So happy without you on my mind. Now I'm doing fine. So happy without you on my mind. Now I'm doing fine. So happy without you on my mind. Now I'm doing fine. So happy without you. I just heard the other day. I'm so proud of who I am. You've been worried about my stay. So happy without you. I just heard the other day. Done being someone else. You've been worried about my stay. So happy without you. I just heard the other day. I'm so proud of who I am. You've been worried about my stay. So happy without you. I just heard the other day. Done being someone else. You've been got my story left to tell. So happy without you.
Wow. Incredible. Thank you so much for that.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm out of breath.
No, feel free. Please take a swig of water. Take a deep breath.
I know.
Everything you need to get relaxed. I'm going to switch over to a different screen so that people could see the chat.
It's okay. He's fine. Yeah, he's fine.
I hope this works. Here we go. And we are...
Cosmo's here to hang out now.
Cosmo! Oh, hi, Cosmo.
Come, sit down. He's like, why are you out here?
So I'd love to, if you're ready to get back into the interview portion.
Oh yeah, go for it.
Yeah, I'd love to ask about when did you decide to become a teacher? Did you think that teaching was inherent to what you were doing as someone who's a choreographer?
Here, hang on one second. I'm so sorry. I'll sit. I've got the table where his access to the couch normally is, so he's very confused.
Oh, I see.
Your question was... What was your question? I'm so sorry.
Yeah, no worries. The question is, and let me think if I have a better way of asking it. When did you decide to become a teacher, and did you think that you always had the urge to teach as someone who's who identifies as a choreographer?
I didn't always have the urge to teach as far as like teaching a technique class or a day-to-day, like weekly class, if that makes sense. Mm-hmm. I've always wanted to be a choreographer since I was like probably 9 or 10. I'm trying to think when So You Think You Can Dance happened. and I remember being like, I'm gonna do that. My mom was like, you're gonna be on that show. And I was like, no, I'm gonna make them do the thing. But I kind of became a teacher almost on accident. I initially got started as just like a choreographer, like a one-off hire for a single performance or like a quinceañera. Wow, that sounded, I was like out of breath when I said, I was like, who is that? I first got started as a choreographer, choreographing for the chamber choir, I think it was, at my high school for their spring show. Okay. They had found like a Glee mix that they wanted to do. Wow. Because
big gig.
2010, yeah. And I was like, yeah, sure, whatever, I'll do it. Great. And then when I was in college, I think it was my second year of college, I was working at a restaurant and I hated it. And I came home and was like, I'm putting in my 2 weeks. This is stupid. This is the worst job ever. And my aunt, who was one of my mom's friends in high school, was like, hey, my sister is starting a dance studio and she needs a ballet teacher. Would you be interested? And I was like, yeah, sure. And so then 2 weeks later, I had my interview / audition to be a teacher, and I had to teach like a jazz progressions class and a ballet private. And I taught and was like, she was like, oh my God, she's amazing. She's like texting my mom, like in the corner, like, she's doing so good. Like, this is awesome. And then I was a part of that studio up until last March. So about a year ago. So for 6 years I was with that studio. Wow. Helped her like start a new studio and like build all of her classes and all of that. So I was teaching almost full time. I was teaching just with competition. I was teaching full time for her. That's
great. I love it. I feel like a lot of the great opportunities that I guess like defined my career were through things like that. I mean, just either the connections or just a wonderful act of chance.
Yeah,
You kind of have to be done with something else in order to be ready for something else, I suppose. You know, you're done with the service
exactly.
industry, had to go straight gung ho into dance.
So full on like pay me to do an art. Like that was
Absolutely.
yeah.
And I mentioned to you before we started streaming that I am so impressed by your website. I think it's a beautiful piece of design.
Thank you.
And I'm pulling it up right now. And we're looking at the offerings that you have for pre-recorded classes. Classes available at your fingertips. Photography is really great. I love the color palette too.
Thank you so much. I think my sister took those ones.
Kudos to your sister.
Yeah.
I love the bit about accessibility. You know, everyone should be able to take a class. My goal is to make exercise and dance as accessible as possible. Was there something in your teaching when you were at Fresno that made you a little bit more attentive to making things accessible to people?
Yes and no. I started to feel that way once I was teaching in a studio, because I felt like I had students that I did end up having students that had like physical disabilities or differently abledness, and as well as I had a couple students with ADHD, and it was just one of those things that if the parent didn't discuss it with the studio or with me, I was like, okay, cool, like let's figure this out on the fly. But I worked really hard, especially because I always wanted those students to feel included in what we were doing. I didn't want them to be like, okay, and now we're gonna run around the room, but Susie can't run, so I'm gonna figure something else out. So I wanted to make sure that was something that was super important to me. Another thing too was like financially speaking, as someone who, you know, at 13, 14, 15 was paying for her own dance classes. I understand, especially, you know, including with COVID, that you can't afford to take, you know, 6 classes a week at $30 a pop, you know? So that was something that I struggled with, especially as COVID hit and everything moved online, all of my training. I struggled with being able to afford taking classes, and I wanted to make sure that other people were able to take classes. So I actually don't charge for any of my live streams. I've never charged for any of those. I ask for donations. The only time I charge is if it's pre-recorded or a Zoom class, so that I can actively give feedback as we're taking class. But so that's something that's I think is super important. I think everybody should get the chance to move. Like, you don't have to be a dancer to move, you know? You don't even have to be a dancer to take a dance class.
I love that message. I do. And just want to give a quick shout out to everybody in the chat. Thank you so much for being here. MJ, aka Last Lost Girl, thank you for being here. Matt says, just close the bar down, drinking some nice lagers on draft with the doors locked. After hours, where y'all at? This is premium content, y'all. It is indeed. Yeah, I really like that message about, you know, movement can be experienced by anyone in any way, shape, or form. And also what you were saying about how all movement has an intrinsic value. What are some of the ways that you think just people in their like regular days can just like get movement in? Like what gives you the creative inspiration to get the wiggles out, as you would say?
I've found that it can be as simple as, like, I think other people get this when you're just, I don't know, I'll be getting ready in the bathroom or doing something, and I'll just like be like ready to go. Like if you get like, whenever I'm like excited, I just kind of like it comes out physically. And I know for some people that's not second nature. But like it's in my head, I don't know why it always comes back to this. If you've seen Charlie's Angels, with Cameron Diaz and
Oh,
Lucy
yeah.
Liu and Drew Barrymore.
A favorite.
Yes,
a
absolutely.
Fantana favorite.
Shaped me as a person. But the scene where Cameron Diaz wakes up and she's just like dancing in her underwear, like making her bed, just like going through her morning, just fully herself and like in her body, like just kind of in, not even her body, but like who she is in that moment, or whoever her character is in that moment, is kind of, I think everybody should give themselves permission to just feel your feelings in your whole body. I think we get stuck in like holding them in, or whether they're a sad feeling or an angry feeling or a happy feeling or an anxious feeling. I think we get stuck in feeling like we have to hold it in and hold it still. And I feel like for everybody, just literally just shaking out, like, and whatever can release so much feeling. It doesn't have to look like anything. It could just be you jumping up and down in your living room, or like, I think I like, you know, it's, again, I'm picturing, like, I have visuals in my head of like in Just Dance, the Russian guy won the love machine dance, like doing that. Like, it doesn't have to be anything crazy. If that makes sense. I think that it's the mental block, I think, is just letting yourself have permission to let your body kind of just, I keep thinking shake everything out, but that's kind of like, I feel like energy gets like stuck otherwise, and you end up just like tense like this.
Yeah, I remember, I can't remember how in like what context I said this, but I think it was in therapy where I told my therapist, I was just like, there's just so much wasted potential energy. There's so much kinetic energy right now.
Yeah, exactly. I think of it like, I've had it explained to me in dance classes as like lights that are moving up and down your body. And like, it's like traffic, you know, like when you look at pictures of traffic, you see like white going one way and red going the other way. Like kind of like that, just moving all over, and just like what direction the energy is pulling you at that moment, if that makes sense.
It does. I'd love to get to some of the inspirations throughout your life. I know you mentioned So You Think You Can Dance, and that being a staple. But are there any choreographers, dancers that you grew up looking up to? People you look up to now?
Yeah, and I think growing up when I was younger, I looked up to the people who I found out were the choreographers of the media that I was consuming on a day-to-day basis, because, you know, dance was starting to become more of the mainstream. So when I was younger, it was, I think some people are going to laugh, it was Mia Michaels, because of course it was. It was Travis Wall, because of course it was. These are all like So You Think You Can Dance names. Like Tice DiOrio. And it's funny because as I've gotten older, I look up to some of those big choreographers less. Not because they're bad or what they put out isn't good. It's just as I've gotten older, kind of seeing and having gotten to work with some of them, like take from them or get feedback from them, I'm less interested in their opinion, if that makes sense. Not because they don't like me or they gave me bad feedback or whatever, but just because I'm like, yeah, no, it's okay. I don't need to know what you think about my work. That's fine. And I've actually found myself being more and more inspired by people I would consider my peers, or that I think would be closer to a peer. Like honestly, like people, like dancers I've connected with through Instagram, and people I've met at auditions that weren't running the audition, but they were like doing the audition with me. And I've started to be more inspired by the dancers who are also choreographers that continuously like put themselves out there and go out for job after job after job and don't get job after job after job, or get one and get another. I think that's kind of that. And there's like smaller companies that I've become more drawn to. There's still a couple like big choreographers that I'm like, I would die. Like Galen Hooks could hit me with her car and I would say thank you. But like, but all of those choreographers that I look up to are also people that put out there that you don't have to be a dancer to put out movement and make people feel something. I think that part of the reason that the choreographers I used to idolize when I was younger are so vastly different from the choreographers that I'm interested in now is because the choreographers that I'm drawn to and interested in now would love it if you can get your leg up by your ear. But they also want to be able to watch you perform and just feel something from you just reaching, if that makes sense. Like just this moment. If someone can make you feel something in that moment, like beautiful. I don't need to see the rest of the piece. You know, like
Kat says Mia Michaels and Travis Wall would not say you don't need to be a trained dancer.
Yes. No, honestly, Mia Michaels scares me. But I've met Travis Wall and I've basically heard him say that. Like he's like, if you can't do it, why are you here?
Harsh.
Yeah, a little bit.
Kat says she scares me too. So you're in good company there. Yeah, because I'm always curious about what the culture is like within different artistic mediums, and it makes me think about whether or not collaboration is something that is something that's promoted, or how does it work when you want to collaborate with someone? Does that include like someone who creates music, someone who's a choreographer, someone who you want to dance with?
Yeah, I think for collaboration that can happen on basically any level. I know, so a company that I've trained with on and off in the last couple of years is LA Contemporary Dance Company, and they're amazing. I adore them. They actually collaborated with Vitamin String Quartet and had like a piece of music like composed just for their work that they did virtually during COVID. And so like, just like, for example, with them, collaboration can come from just like, be like a choreographic residency where you just bring in an outside choreographer to work with dancers that those dancers haven't worked with before. Collaboration as a choreographer for me is really difficult. I think it's difficult for a lot of people especially if you're collaborating with someone who has a different movement vocabulary than you do. So like I've choreographed pieces for dancers like with another choreographer before. And I've had it be successful depending on the other choreographer, and I've had it be very, very clear who choreographed which section of which dance. The kind of collaboration as a choreographer that I prefer is me and that other person in a studio together, basically going step by step and just kind of like meshing our movement together to kind of like, in my brain, it's like if you took regular handwriting and cursive and you made a hybrid, like that's what my brain wants collaborative choreography to look like. Okay. Versus like switching off between like Comic Sans and cursive. You know what I mean? Like I would rather have it be like something in the middle. Instead
of font choice.
Thank you. It was the only one I could think of. I don't know why. And then, but as like a dancer, I love collaborating with a new choreographer. I love working with different choreographers because what's funny is as a choreographer, everybody expresses their choreography differently verbally. So like I've worked with choreographers who are friends of mine that have been like, and it's just a little leg here, nice and small, just a little one. And then they do it and their leg is up here. And you're like, what is it? A little leg or a big leg? And they're like, it's a little leg. You just, cool. So you kind of like, and as
my big,
exactly.
What do we do?
Exactly. Yeah. So I think it's, I love it because I feel like I get to grow as a choreographer and a dancer. And I feel like I always walk away, maybe not with one specific move that like feels like that person, but their choreography or having done someone else's choreography repeatedly might change the way that I feel the connection from my shoulder to my elbow, if that makes sense. Like in the way that I move it, the way that I move it, it feels, they might have done a different movement path than I would have thought of, that I'm like, wow, I didn't even know that I could step on my left foot, like, so that kind of thing. And I think that as far as, I think that collaboration done well is absolutely phenomenal. And I think that, it takes a long time. Sometimes it takes a long time, sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes you find a composer or a choreographer or another dancer that it just looks like you've been, or feels like you've been working together since forever. Mm-hmm. And it just flows out of you.
That's great.
Those are really special moments, and I really like those. Who wouldn't?
Well, we're getting close to, I would think, the end of the stream. So I would love to open up the chat. If anybody has a question for Gianna, feel free to bring that up. But I would love to ask about some of your aspirations. I know that those changed during the pandemic, and that's why you introduced a lot of these online resources for people.
Yeah.
Is there something, if you had to pick an avenue of how you participate in movement, what would you want for that? Like, which one would you want to pick up, like, immediately? Like this is the one that like blasted off. Like, I got famous on YouTube, or like people are showing up on my Twitch streams, or like everyone wants to take an online course. Like, what would be?
I mean, I would love it if everybody wanted to take an online course. That would be. It's funny that you bring that up. I'm technically on vacation right now. Like, I'm not working for the next couple weeks at my normal jobs. And so I've been doing a lot of thinking, and I think in the avenues that I'm going down right now, I feel like I would love if I could go completely online or in person and doing pre-recorded classes or custom classes and Zoom or in-person pop-up and when I'm able to do that. I think, and then further down the line for me, and this is like, again, I've been doing there's a lot of lists in my journal right now. So further down the line for me, I mean, I'm still submitting and auditioning for companies and one-off works and stuff like that. And so I would love, once that's able to start up again, for me to be able to do that. But long term, ideally, I would love to have my own company, my own dance company. I would love it if I could get it to be enough that I have an academy, because I feel like so many young dancers get pushed to do the kind of dance that can be so detrimental to your body. Dance as a sport is so hard on your body. I have no cartilage in my left hip anymore from injuries, and like I've had scoliosis because of injuries. I told you I tore that ligament in my foot.
Right.
And if you can ask basically any dancer, and they'll give you a laundry list of things that have been hurt or chronic pain that they have. Kat will tell you that I've had multiple concussions that are dance related. That it's just, I feel like there's got to be a better way to help young dancers grow, that isn't going to sacrifice them being able to walk at 26. you know, like there's days that I wake up and I'm like, I actually don't know if I can make it to the kitchen just yet, you know, like it shouldn't, I'm 25, this shouldn't be an issue, you know, so.
Absolutely. Yeah, it never even occurred to me that that's sort of like, you could be stunting someone's like body progression by doing such an intensive program. Yeah, so that's such a great thing to bring up. Kat says yes, she can confirm the concussions.
Yeah, she was there for one of them. Yeah.
Oh no. Do we get into that? Because I would hope that it didn't involve falling or not even whiplash or something like that. Like I don't.
No, I fell on top of my head, and it was.
Oh, no.
I think I was rehearsing for her piece. It might have been for her piece. Oh no, sorry, Kat.
Throwing shade. This is the tea.
I know. Oh no, it wasn't her fault. It was totally my fault. I was like, I can totally do it. It's fine. And then my elbow gave out, and all of my body weight landed on the top of my head, and I just went. And they thought I had a hairline fracture in my neck.
Wow.
And I didn't. Thank God I didn't. It was the worst concussion I've ever had. I think I was out of school for a week, and I missed the first 3 performances of the company. But after that, I was fine. She said yes.
And I had to recast right before the show. Oh my God.
Yeah, that was the most brutal part. I was already a recast. Like I was already the alternate.
Oh, the amount of stress. This is, on both levels, you're both going through a really big thing.
Yeah, I was injured, and then it was her like senior piece. Like it was her senior show dance piece. I know. I felt so bad.
Thank you for taking me through that. That was a whirlwind.
But yeah, anyway, long term, I would like to have a dance company with an academy or an education program that I can work with dancers, not just like I also don't want to gatekeep that. Like I don't want it to be just dancers who can afford to do a $3,000 summer intensive, you know? Like that's not realistic for a lot of people, especially if my company is in a different state, you know? I think COVID has given people a little bit more perspective of distance in that respect as far as dance goes. So
as far as dance goes, I was gonna say.
As far as dance goes.
Yeah. I mean,
I think so.
People are just getting too comfortable about vax. They'll be like, "Oh, I got vaccinated. How you doing?" And be like, "Get away from me. Get away."
Oh my God. Please, unless you're gonna pay for my tofu, I'm gonna need you to take a step back. But yeah, as far as dance goes, I think especially with like intensives, so many have had to do virtual intensives to keep that still going, or have gone to like this coming summer, we've gone to hybrid where it's half in person. Some of the students are in person and some of them are still online, and you can choose which one you're comfortable with doing. And that's kind of something I hope that we keep. I would like to keep it. Because I think, you know, again, not everybody can afford, say, like, okay, I can save up and drop $600 and do this intensive. I cannot afford an Airbnb for 2 weeks.
Right.
You know, so unless you have a support system in the city that you would be doing that training in, you're kind of SOL. Like I have friends that have honestly slept in their cars for a weekend because they had an audition and they couldn't afford a hotel, or they spent their last $30 on, you know, dance classes because that was all that they could swing, so that they were gonna, spend my last $30. I have my money to get home, go home, work for 2 months, go back for the next audition, you know, like.
Wow. Frances Ha really undersold the starving artist of dance performance.
Right? I know. It's not cute. It's not a cute feeling. It's not. I think that's definitely part of as far as starving artists, like definitely something that people don't talk about with dancers. Like specifically, I think when, you know, someone talks about a starving artist, they imagine like a skinny white guy with a beard and a beanie painting in a shack in New York, you know, like
Yeah, he's paying extra for that.
Yeah, exactly, right.
Look like that.
Yeah, exactly. His sugar mama's paying for the apartment. Like, it's fine. But I genuinely know people that were like, no, I spent my last $5 on that dance class so that I could get in front of that choreographer before the audition next month. Like, because part of the battle ends up being, do they know you? Like, so much of that, this industry is, if they've never seen you before, unless you are like the next Misty Copeland, they're kind of not interested. Like, unless you are so incredibly ridiculously talented with like, my leg can go, like this leg can come over here and like my feet are just like it's not it's not something that they're going to be like, oh yeah, like that's something that we're really looking for, is someone with a medium height leg and like a size 4. Like, great. So I think
I'm just imagining like if there's an equivalent to like the triple Lutz in ice skating, where it's like, oh, they pulled off this triple axel, like in these particular shoes. We need to cast them now. You are
exactly.
You are
and
the Nutcracker.
Oh, you are the Nutcracker. That's the other thing too, though, which is like, I forget about, because I haven't been to an audition in person in so long, is I was looking at auditions today and they put height requirements, or sometimes they'll put size requirements on an audition listing, because if you go to work for like Universal or Disney or any like kind of stage show that's like recasting, they have a costume already made. If you don't fit into that costume, there's a girl that can do exactly what you can do that does.
Wow.
So like it's kind of such a saturated market in terms of dancers. Like, there's a billion of girls like me that want to be on stage doing dance as their job. And so, you know, it turns into this really it messes with your head because you feel like a commodity, but then you also feel like there's too many of you for you to like stand out. So then you have to kind of really get in your head about what makes me different. And then if you go to too many auditions where everybody looks like you, you start to spin, you know?
Yeah. What is the light at the end of that tunnel?
For me, honestly, it's been that every audition experience I've ever had, whether or not I was offered the job, I came out of it with like 4 new friends. Like, every single person that I got to interact with that was also auditioning, I'm still in contact with. Like, we still hype each other up on Instagram and are like sending each other casting calls that are near each other. If like we can't go to it, we're like, or if we're like, hey, I'm going to be in the area, like, do you want to go to this audition with me? And we kind of just have become this like support network for each other, in terms of like, I have friends in Australia, I have friends in New York, I have friends based in Germany, like, that all like are dancers that have just been at auditions that I've been at, and we've continued to train and grow together, which is kind of so amazing.
That's incredible. That's awesome how a community can be built through something that can be so competitive and so intense. My last question for you, because we have been doing this for over an hour now, is for someone who's absorbing all the knowledge that you have given us today, what are some words of support for anybody who's trying to become a burgeoning performance artist?
I'll say what I think I needed to hear when I was probably 18 or 19, starting to really choreograph stuff that I wanted to choreograph, not that I was commissioned to, is it's not all going to be good. Not everything you put out is going to be a winner. and that's okay. That working through those movements and your whatever stage of your artistry that you're at is important, and it's going to shape the way that you create further down the line. And to never ever stop learning from people who have been doing it longer than you. You don't have to do it exactly the way that they are, but learning from them is going to tell you what you want to change. Like watching my teachers teach and training under people taught me what kind of teacher I didn't want to be, which I think is important. Taught me what kind of choreographer I didn't want to be. I never want to be, the teacher or the choreographer that's berating a kid because it's the first day they've learned the choreography, but they can't straighten their knee. Okay, that's fine. If they can't straighten their knee, then my job as a choreographer and a teacher is to choreograph for the dancer, not to make the dancer do my work, in my opinion. So I always look at any job like that as, if I can't make something for this person specifically or for this event, like that's on me. That's not on that person. It's not on the person who's my canvas, And so I think that it's important to own when you put out something that's bad and just be like, yeah, I made that piece and it's terrible and I don't like it, but I made it. And so now I know that I don't like that, So I think it's just about playing. I think if you just keep playing, you'll figure out who you are as an artist overall. And that never stops changing.
Wise words. Thank you so much for being here, Gianna. Always a pleasure. You're always welcome back in case you ever have a project coming up. Enjoy this vacation.
Thank you.
Yeah, I hope I wish you the best of luck with all of your endeavors. If you're interested in taking a course with Gianna, visit GiannaRenataDance.com. The links are in the chat. You can also follow her on Instagram at Gianna Renata, as well as on Twitch. Really excited for another stream if that's going to be coming up soon. Have a great rest of your weekend and an even better night.
Thank you so much. You too. Thank you so much for having me on. It was a blast.
Thank you. All right, everyone. We're going to be rating Will Wisp. They're playing Elder Scrolls right now. Fantastic streamer. Always got great vibes. Kat, thank you for being here. Thank you for watching. Have a great night, everybody. I've been Courtney Love.